Greetings. God bless you. And we are back once again for another wonderful discussion here in the after hours. A lot of different updates, a lot of different things to cover. I'm joined by my brother Michael.
Greetings.
Michael, I appreciate you for sure. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. I got another day to get right what I got wrong yesterday with the Lord.
Absolutely.
So
And that's a blessing.
that's it. Yeah, because I don't want another day just to keep sinning.
No, sir. So, Michael, I got this episode going because there's some questions that I had. As always, when it comes to war, rumors of wars and things of that nature. Um, there's truths that are told, and as we see and know for sure, there's many lies that are told. So here we are, still in the middle of the war. No, you know, projected end in sight. And I have to ask the question based on the most recent developments, and this is to Brother Michael, everyone in the chat. Is President Trump lying about the war? Some people might say, well, why would he lie? What does he have to lie about? I want to share this map here. And also, we're going to cover a few different news articles. But, Michael, I know you're aware of things that are going on around the world and closer to home. What are your initial thoughts here as we look at what's going on with the US Iran war? And if we can do just a quick recap, February 19th, there's an ultimatum. February 28th, Operation Epic Fury launched. Khamenei was gone in the opening strikes, as we all know. Now we're at day 22. Trump just signaled a possible winding down, saying we're very close to objectives. It could end soon, but CENTCOM administration and other reports are saying elsewise. Specifically from Iran, they're saying, of course, that there are no talks. There is nothing winding down. They claim a strategic masterstroke, in their own words, targeting different tourist spots. Missiles fired at Diego Garcia base. Of course, they missed, but that's to say the strait is still contested. So we're getting conflicting signals here. I want to hear your thoughts, Michael, before I dive into some of these news here.
There's always a certain confusion to war, and no matter what country you're in, I don't care
Mhm.
what country you're in, you're going to get a type of propaganda from that country, because everybody's trying to save face and trying to reassure their people. So there is a type of propaganda in every article to a degree. But if you read between the lines,
Yeah,
uh, also if you look at past reports, you can find out a lot about what's been forming for a long time actually. But of course, Donald Trump is lying uh, about about certain things. And remember what I was telling you last time,
yes, sir.
that they're going to have to start using weapons and subsequently declassifying that stuff
Mm,
as a result of it. And you've seen that with the new types of missiles and airplanes that they've. And there was a fella that came out. I think he's for the FEMA or something, and he was talking about how he teleported, and he was
wow,
talking about how his first time or first experience teleporting was and stuff. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's what he was saying.
I
But
mean that's pretty wild.
well, you think about things that Donald Trump has said in the past when he said that we had things that could alter space and time. He has said things like that. So,
For sure.
yeah,
I mean, I've
um,
seen like CERN and stuff. They've teleported like molecules or atoms. I'm not sure if I'm getting it incorrect, but I understand it. It's feasible, maybe.
do you know what CERN would be without an electromagnetic containment?
I don't.
CERN without electromagnetic containment would be a particle beam weapon.
Wow,
Uh, yeah,
just
that's exactly
shooting
what it would be.
shooting particles.
Yeah, like a beam. Yeah,
Wow,
without electromagnetic containment, because that's what contains you know everything that goes on there. Realistically, it contains a lot of stuff. It contains radiation. It contains just a lot of things.
for sure.
But no, they're hitting too many targets still. They're just hitting
Hmm.
too many targets. And to a degree, you can't necessarily just put all the blame on Donald Trump and the administration. I know that might be a hard pill for some people to swallow, but when you look at how society has had this type of bloodlust in them for a while, this aggression, it's been building up for a long time in society. You can see it. People become more rude, more short. They have a type of, murderous mentality. If we didn't, we wouldn't have like boxing and Call of Duty and, you know.
I hear
So, so basically, we've been sitting in the West here real pretty for a long time on the high horse, fattening ourselves up with pride, become complacent and kind of shut off to a lot of things that's really happening around the world.
you. Yeah.
So I think that we really need a big smack in the face to
Hmm.
get to get our attention and to humble us. Because if we don't humble ourselves, we're surely going to get chastised.
I don't think you're wrong at all. I definitely think we can all use a huge dose of humbleness for sure. Well, Michael, you said something a moment ago. It's funny because I had this map up and waiting. I got a few different maps. This is the area here in Middle East that what it's showing is the different areas that have been damaged by Iran's retaliation. So, there are different colors for different types of facilities that have been hit. Red is a plant, orange is a port, uh, green is storage, blue is a field. But you can see, I mean, by all means, they are
Field as an oil field, or
right.
okay,
Yes, sir. Um, but yeah, like you were saying, they're definitely still striking back. It's not a case of where they've stopped. I've got a news clip I want to roll, but this is the most recent strike here. Diego Garcia is a joint U.S. British military base. This is showing like that it's over 2,000 miles away from Iran, and obviously that plays a part in intercepting the strikes and whatnot. But that's pretty far away. Um, and the fact that they're targeting and they've got their sights set on this military base, it doesn't signal the same things that Donald Trump is saying in regards to the war winding down. So I got this map here with some more plot points, Michael, and it's showing really what the biggest issue is, which is that it's going to be difficult to open the Strait of Hormuz without a deal with Iran. That's just a fact. Um, so some of the things it brings up here, key oil refineries and terminals, but that shallow waters in the area that are kind of highlighted with these shaded areas, they force the ships into narrow lanes, or essentially they can't spread out. So easy target. They can be mined as well. So that's one of the issues going through the strait here. High terrain of Iran offers line of sight, obviously looking down at the water level or sea level for firing missiles. They have islands there as well that can serve as missile launch sites. Um, and the long, rugged coastline conceals entry points for small attack boats, which we've already heard them using the speedboats, quick hit and in and out type missions. So obviously, this is an area here that is posing a big issue for Donald Trump to secure. He's asked for help. We talked about that last time. The world, specifically NATO, said, "Hey, this is not our war. You started it. Don't don't come over here asking for help." And greetings, God bless everyone in the chat. We appreciate you for sure. So I'm showing this because there's a serious problem that's going on in the regards to the U.S. struggling to secure the Strait of Hormuz. And Mike, we've talked a lot about how that impacts the world for sure. I have a short clip here, my friend, I want to play in regards to what question I'm asking tonight. Is Donald Trump telling the truth about the war? There's a poll in the chat, a very simple poll. It's asking, is President Trump lying about the US Iran war? Yes, I'm not sure, or no, I support Trump's war decision. So let's listen closely here. This is some news that came out very recently, less than 24 hours ago, in regards to the most recent developments with the US Iran war. And then I'll get your thoughts, Michael.
Did Donald Trump just back down, or is something bigger being hidden? Because while Trump claims productive talks, Iran is saying something completely different. There are no talks. The US has been defeated. So, who's telling the truth? Just days after threatening massive strikes, Trump announced a 5-day pause on attacks targeting Iran's energy infrastructure. He claimed it was due to ongoing negotiations and a possible deal. But from Tehran, the response was immediate and brutal. Senior Iranian officials didn't just deny talks, they mocked the United States. Ibrahim Rezai, a key parliamentary spokesperson, declared, "The battle continues. Another defeat for the devil. Trump and the United States have once again been defeated." Iran insists no direct talks, no indirect talks, no back-channel negotiations, calling Trump's claims psychological warfare to hide weakness. According to Iran, the real reason for the pause is simple: fear. They say Washington backed off because of credible Iranian threats, including closing the Strait of Hormuz, striking U.S. bases, and attacking Gulf energy infrastructure. State media is calling it a 5-day retreat, not diplomacy. But Trump is sticking to a completely different story. He says talks are happening, Iran wants a deal badly, and the pause is a chance to avoid further destruction. He even warned if talks fail, the strikes will return even stronger. All of this is happening in the middle of a growing conflict involving the US, Israel, and Iran. Recent weeks have seen airstrikes on nuclear and military sites, attacks on energy infrastructure, missile exchanges across the region. The Persian Gulf remains on edge, with military forces on high alert.
So I want to pause and focus really quick on this specific frame, Michael, directly from President Trump's social media. And actually, let me back up a moment so we can see the date here. It says March 23rd, 2026, 2:05 p.m. I'm pleased to report the United States of America and the country of Iran have had, over the last 2 days, very good and productive conversations regarding a complete and total resolution of our hostilities in the Middle East. Now, in the next frame, it says that they flatly deny that, and obviously calling him a liar. I don't understand. This is where I'm struggling, and I would like your thoughts, Michael, if I can get them. Why would you say that if it's not true to President Trump? Why lie about the war?
Uh, his response about having talks, nobody really kind of necessarily knows who he's talking to, because he just had a thing where he said that that they gave him a gift and
Right.
that it was basically oil related and he wasn't going to tell, what it was and this and that. So if he is talking to an opposition leader that hasn't quite made it into the scene there yet, then that could be the case. If not, then he's just bold-faced lying publicly Uh,
Right.
you know, that's really only two options. But about the jets that went down, uh,
The F-15s, right?
F-35s,
Okay. Okay. Is
which
that a
is
big?
significant.
That's
Yeah,
significant.
no, F-35 is supposedly one of the most advanced, um, capable aircraft in the world. Um, but Iran, I believe it was 2011, 2012,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken. The United States was launching stealth drones. I believe in, uh, I believe they were in Iraq, or they weren't in Iran, but they were close. But when they were launching these drones, Iran had a set of men that was outside of the base, dressed like goat herders.
Hmm.
And when they launched that drone, the IRGC took control of it remotely and landed it. And I'm pretty sure they kept it. And I'm pretty sure they reversed engineered it.
Oh, so like
Um,
they hacked it?
well, Iran has been saying for some time now
Hmm.
that it has tractor beam weapons, and that they have,
Wow.
for a lack of better terms, spacecraft like UFOs. Uh, they've been saying things like that for years. It's kind of been talked about, but nobody really talks about it. Um, it's hard telling what they have,
Right.
just like it's hard telling what we have. Because you got to remember, the first thing about the nuclear weapon is that North Korea has nuclear weapons, and North Korea is a close ally with China. So that obviously means that China more than likely helped them develop their nuclear capabilities.
Oh, for sure. I mean, bricks,
Okay,
right?
so right. So the thing is that either one of two things. If none of those countries helped Iran develop nuclear weapons, and they actually already have them,
Hmm. Hmm.
then that means that nobody, even on the other side, trusts Iran to have a nuclear weapon, because it wouldn't make sense for them to give North Korea weapons, and you see how unhinged North Korea is. Uh, so, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say you make a good point. I think they have to be careful, obviously, with how they're helping, right? In the regards to if they were to give directly that type of technology, nuclear weapons per se, to Iran, can that be traceable knowing that they weren't yet there? That's kind of like if there's a student in class and they normally get 60% on their papers, and then they sit next to Michael and they got a 95%, there's going to be someone's going to have some questions like, wait a minute, what's the factor here that allowed them to advance so far? So I hear what you're saying for sure, but I think they have to be careful, obviously, about how they're helping. Not saying that they're not helping. I think a lot of people know for sure they're helping with data, satellite imaging, and stuff like that for sure. But I think the short of giving them directly a weapon that the world knows they have not yet developed, that would be almost like, getting caught red-handed, saying, okay, how did they get this when they weren't yet close? I mean, obviously North Korea, a whole nother story with as far as their weapons development goes and stuff like that. But I can't say definitively anyone gave them that weapon, right? It was more so I
Uh,
think they were developing the rocket technology, and that's maybe a different conversation. But did you get my point kind of though, Michael, as far as them not being able to just directly pass over that kind of technology without getting caught?
sure. Yeah. No, I totally understand. Uh, but there's a lot of variables
For
Uh,
sure.
for one, if Iran did develop nuclear weapons, they wouldn't tell anybody.
That too.
They would
That too.
keep that. Yeah. So they could have had Benjamin Netanyahu had been saying that since the 90s. And you got to think about how old now, in the grand scheme of war, is that nuclear technology is,
True.
because we've surpassed that. I mean, there are worse weapons, space based weapons,
Hmm.
certain other types of bombs that don't necessarily have the long term radiation. Um, a lot of things that have been hypothetical that's declassified.
Hmm.
But the thing is that some years ago, and I believe this is what sparked Barack Obama to go into the uh, nuclear proliferation treaty, if I'm not mistaken. From the 1980s, 1990s, somewhere in that time frame, till up to sometime in the 2000s, 30 of the world's leading scientists were in Tehran working
Wow.
on God knows what. And nobody really knew because it was like I guess, a black project that Iran
And like
itself had.
Operation Paperclip thing going on there.
Well, every country kind of does stuff like that. That's
Right.
why one time when Donald Trump was talking about being friends with China and all these other things, the reporters said, "Well, don't they spy on us?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "But so did the French and this and that, because every country's got spies. Because at the end of the day, all these countries
They
really
want
only
some
kind
kind
of
of intel.
yeah, well, they get along to go along,
For sure.
basically,
For sure.
right? And at any moment, you could see countries turn their backs on each other because there's a lot of stress in the world, not necessarily just with war, but
Hmm.
spiritually, economically, societal. It's just a multifaceted thing. But Iran could have developed nuclear weapons a long time ago, to be
Mm.
honest. It's not like they don't have the minds there to figure out how this technology works when we developed the atom bomb and you pretty much told the world that you split an atom. It's not like somebody can't go out and replicate that. But the fact of the matter is that I feel like they underestimated them.
Hmm.
Definitely. Um, they underestimate all of them because we constantly hear that we're the biggest superpower. We got the best this, the best that. But a lot of countries say similar things.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're absolutely right, Mike, in the regards of underestimating Iran. Israel attacked their gas field, right? Energy site. And so in response, Iran fired back at two facilities in Kuwait. I have on this map here, energy hub in Qatar, facility in UAE, oil refinery, and I think that's in the Israel area. But my point is, I agree wholeheartedly. They definitely underestimated their ability to retaliate in this conflict, and that's what has us where we're at today. I do want to take just a couple comments, Michael. I want to get right back to you because you got some wonderful thoughts here, and I have another clip that I want to share with you for sure. I do want to give some shout outs to our wonderful and beloved sister, Mrs. TNT. We thank the Lord for her. Shout out to her and shout out to her family. God bless all of her loved ones. Shout out to our sister, Blessed. Greetings and God bless you. We thank the Lord for you, sister. Shout out to Jessica Williams and welcome to the After Hours. Mrs. TNT said regarding President Trump, he is not to be trusted because there's always some type of evil plot or evil agenda he has behind things. It's hard to hard to argue with that. Knowing Trump's history and just the things that he said when the truth has come out, it hasn't exactly been in line. Bonnie, shout out to you, sister Bonnie says Trump hasn't told the truth in so long. He has millions of idiots listening to him. You know, fair enough. Slither Gaming, shout out to you. Said, good thing I didn't sign that dotted line in the Air Force last year. For the Air Force, he meant. Yeah, I'm glad as well. Especially after you see this next clip, Brother Slither Gaming, because you're going to see something here that a lot of us weren't really sure was going to happen, and that's the U.S. deployment of over 1,000 troops to the Middle East. And so the real pinball says first casualty of war is truth. It's a very, very true statement. I think Michael would agree with that for sure. Everett River says, with all due respect, the presidency, not the president. America is great because God did it, not no rich man that's hurting all the poor kids. Watch out, wake up, please wake up. He's an idiot. Okay. It's a little hard to follow that one there, a little bit inconsistent with the message there, but I think I got the gist of it. Grandma Gigi says he lies about everything. Shout out to you, Gigi, concerning President Trump. Greetings and God bless to Sister Gwendolyn for sure. And we appreciate Sister Bless for supporting the channel here. This is an interesting take. I want to get your thoughts on this one, Michael. Not interested said Americans are guilty, not Trump alone. But what are your thoughts on that? Americans are guilty.
I'm not necessarily sure about guilty because I'm not sure what the right response in his position would be. That's why
Yeah.
I can't judge him, because when you're leading the nation, there's a lot of variables and a lot of things we might not know about. So I can't say what he's doing is right or wrong because I'm not sure. I think that that'll be proven to us in time, and
Mm,
and we'll see for ourselves where it goes. But as for right now, I think they're saying that anyone in America that would support that,
mm,
you know, so you know, I don't, I don't know.
yeah.
I'm just saying, you can't, because you got to think about all of the if if every country has spies and
Hmm.
they all spy on each other, that means they're doing a lot of secretive things in the background that nobody knows about. Every country is. So you don't know what who was planning what and where and this and that. So we'll just have to see what happens.
Fair enough. I to say Americans are guilty, not just Trump alone. For me, the comment implies that the person has the opinion that Trump is guilty, but they're saying that America in general. I don't know. Maybe Michael is right. They're referring to those who go along with Trump, the MAGA group or whatnot. But yeah, it's interesting knowing that there was no kind of poll or vote or anything before this conflict arose. So for that, it's kind of hard for me to see eye to eye with that comment. But hey, you're still entitled to your opinion. We definitely respect it and appreciate you for sharing it. I have a
Yeah,
quick
that would
clip,
be like
Michael.
saying, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, brother. Oh, you got it.
I was just gonna say that would be like saying that all the Iranians that join the military would be guilty when they're just joining the military to a degree because they might feel like their country's in danger. I mean,
Well, I think part of
and
it's
vice
law
versa
too.
here, huh?
Right. I think it's built into their laws as well, though, in Iran that there's like a mandatory service
In
for.
Israel, there is for sure.
Right.
I believe, yeah, except for religious groups. But the big thing about the Iran and the supreme leader that was bombed,
Hmm.
they don't realize and not thinking he wasn't necessarily the political leader, like the presidency and this and that. He was the religious leader for the
Mm.
entire Shiite Muslim world.
Wow.
So now you're not talking just people in Iran that's loyal to him. You're talking about all the Shiite Muslims that would follow him. And that's, probably tens of millions or better.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a small thing, right? What they did when they took out Khomeini in the first days of Operation Epic Fury. For sure, we'll see how that plays out. And when you see some of those comments, like they say, the devil and whatnot, you definitely get a sense that they're speaking religiously, obviously.
Well,
With
yeah. Sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Um, in 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 their beliefs, America is the big Satan
Hmm.
and Israel is the little
Mm,
Satan. Obviously, they want Israel, but you got to remember that the leadership that took over in Iran since the 1970s or
hmm.
late 19, basically 1980, since then have been saying death to America, death to Israel, and they've been watching how we've done military operations in the Middle East. It's not like America's going to do operations next door to them and they're not going to take notice. So they
Right.
kind of know to a degree how we respond, and you know they know a lot. They're very smart people and very underestimated, and their capabilities are vastly underestimated. You got to think China has fighter jets that are the same generation as our advanced fighter jets, if not one generation ahead.
Wow.
And it's not like they don't all share info. And Russia is really, really, really good at drones, but so is Iran. Iran's actually probably the leading uh, drone advancements because they haven't really deployed a lot of their stuff. That's like in Ukraine. Russia really hasn't deployed its
Right.
mainline troops. They've been deploying people coming over and joining their you know from all places. Like they've had people from uh, I believe China. I think they've had people from Iran. They've had people from North Korea. But they're not really deploying their main arsenals either, because if any country really deployed modern technology, because you got to think all this stuff we're seeing now, missiles and stuff, that's been a well-known thing for a long time,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like old, outdated junk that they have to clear out. You
Yeah, I was
know,
gonna say they're just getting rid of the old stuff, getting that out
right?
the way for sure.
So when they actually start deploying things that could potentially end a war in one move, uh, that's when the rest of the world takes notice, and then everybody kind of has to have countermeasures. So you're looking at like a cascade effect. Even if there's a talk of peace that comes out of this, there's not going to be any peace that comes out of this. It's just
Mm,
not going to happen.
good point. I got a clip here, Michael. So we just saw a moment ago report of President Trump talking about peace talks with Iran. He posted on his social media about 24 hours ago. Iran denied that. And now we have another clip here, which still begs the question, is President Trump lying about the war? So let's watch here closely. We'll get your thoughts in the chat. Vote in the poll, hit the like button, and share your thoughts for sure here in the after hours.
The U.S. now preparing to deploy around 1,000 troops to the Middle East. That tonight, according to the Associated Press. The soldiers are from the 82nd Airborne Division and are trained to parachute into hostile territory as well as airfields. Now, tonight, the New York Times also reporting here that the U.S. sent Iran a 15-point plan, reportedly via Pakistan. Now, that has not been confirmed directly by the White House. President Trump adding today that Iran has agreed that it will not have a nuclear weapon, including any nuclear enrichment. But top leaders in Tehran have not yet confirmed if that is true.
I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won. And we literally have planes flying over Tehran and other parts of their country. They can't do a thing about it. For instance, if I want to take down that power plant, that very big, powerful power plant, they can't do a thing about it.
290 U.S. troops have been wounded so far in Operation Epic Fury. All but 35 have returned to duty. According to the Pentagon, 10 are considered seriously wounded.
Oil prices are back up above $100 a barrel after fighting between Israel and Iran continued overnight. Brent crude, the global oil benchmark, hit more than $114 a barrel Monday, then dropped slightly after President Trump touted productive conversations with Iran about ending the war.
So I want to pause it right there, actually, because that brings up a good point. What the reporter had just said, the oil prices dropped slightly when Trump had mentioned about ending the war. Is this a ploy? Is this some kind of, we know Trump tries to play what they call 4D chess or whatever, outsmart the opposition, if you will. Michael, could this all be some kind of ploy? We know that, I mean, there's reports all over the place of the deployment of those troops, the 82nd brigade there. Why would you deploy more troops if there's talks of peace? And when we first were talking about this, we obviously were saying, hey, boots on the ground would be a very bad idea. This is a paratrooper brigade. Um, Iran has already responded saying, if you were to do so, we're sending drones to wipe them out. Obviously, they're not just going to stand by and let you airdrop troops into a place that they can target or they've already targeted. As you can see again on this map, Iran's already impacted the area in a huge way. The strait is certainly contested for many reasons. Michael, what are your thoughts on that clip there about the deployment of more troops to the area?
I believe that, and a lot of people might not agree with me, and that's fine. But I believe that they slowed down their targeting, and they're not targeting air and all these things purposely.
When you say they, you mean Iran, or are you talking about the
Yeah.
U.S.? Okay.
Yeah. He was talking about us flying over and them not really doing nothing about it and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
I think that they're doing it purposely. And I think that they're doing it purposely to give us a false sense of hope that we'll be able to go in on the ground. Now, when you go in on the ground, that's a whole different story. And realistically, they haven't used what they really have, or at least what they're theorized to have.
Kind of like bait and switch type thing.
Right. Yes. Because we're so prideful, but the thing is that technological advancements aside, it would not take nothing for somebody to put a briefcase or some kind of container on the end of a drone or a missile and contaminate the battlefield in a bad way, where nobody's going to be, doing anything. I don't want to come out and directly say that type of thing, but I don't know if you get my drift or not.
Yeah. Releasing something for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if somebody were to do something like that and release a drone, missile, what have you, that were, compromised with some kind of
like biologically
outside agent, the hope is that somebody would intercept it, so that way it would fall in the air and blanket the battlefield. So, there's a lot of things to take in consideration.
Wow. Michael really wargaming this here. But he's right. There's a lot that can happen here. There's a lot that can happen here for sure. Especially when you look at the map and you look at the terrain of Iran, and you know that, I mean, they have largely dominated the area as far as the retaliation strikes. I know we just saw a clip where President Trump said, "Hey, what can they do about it?" But likewise, we haven't been able to stop them from effectively closing the Strait of Hormuz. So that there doesn't really reflect what's accurately going on, right? As far as air dominance and just dominating the battlefield in that way, as President Trump was saying, hey, I don't want to say it, but the war is pretty much over. It's kind of like, you know, just last week you were calling for help. You were calling for a coalition of countries to come in and support defending the strait. And now you're saying we're very close to objectives, war could end soon, you know, things of that nature. So again, it is conflicting information that we're getting not only from President Trump, but just from looking at what's going on in the battlefield. Michael making a great point. As you can see here, islands can serve as missile launch sites or drone launching sites. There's a lot of shallow water. There's a lot of high terrain from which things can be deployed um, in Iran. So, yeah, a mobile invasion on the ground, not a great idea. It kind of makes us wonder what's going on with those 1,000 or so troops, this brigade now that's been deployed, that's been mobilized. Let me know in the chat, did you ever think that there would be boots on the ground or that we would be sending in more people into the Middle East specifically for this conflict? There was a mention of a 15-point plan, a 5-day pause on strikes. We know that Israel hasn't stopped their strikes on Iran. And of course, we know that Iran hasn't stopped returning fire either. So, with all that said, I want to kind of pivot, Michael, to this professor by the name of Jiang. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'll call him X, who predicted this war actually, predicted the presidency, predicted this war, and still warns that this is classic attrition. We spoke about that last time, stretching out the war, fighting it slowly, draining your opponent of resources. Now, Iran has prepared for 20 years. The population is unified in this cause. So, all those different talks we heard at the beginning of the conflict from Israel and the US saying to the Iranian population, rise up, overthrow your government, now's your chance. That's largely been silenced because we saw that that was not going to happen. They've actually probably more effectively unified them now by taking out the leader early on in the war. So this professor, though, the reason I bring him up, he's saying that prolonged conflict obviously favors Iran. The oil chaos we heard from the reporter, radicalization of the population, and outside help, as you mentioned, from China, Russia, or others. If Trump is overstating progress to wind down early, is he playing into the trap, or is he, as Iran said, kind of giving a show or a tell that he doesn't want this to prolong? And they said it's a sign of weakness, him trying to kind of project that he wants this conflict to end quickly. What are your thoughts on that, Michael, and those different analysts like Professor Jiang and his predictive history channel saying that this is not the type of war that the U.S. thought we were going to fight?
Give me 1 second, and I'll come back and speak.
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem at all. As we wait for Michael, I'm gonna take a couple of comments from the chat. Again, boots possibly on the ground. We know that troops are being deployed. When that happens, it's not a large amount of time before something else unfolds. Again, looking at the map here, looking at the Strait of Hormuz, it's not really a great opportunity for ground troops at all. And if you're just trying to figure out like what is happening with this conflict that the US started, it's hard to say because as of now we have to ask the question, is President Trump lying about the war? So Dennis Nielsen, he says, yes, Trump is lying. Why is that even a question? Fair enough. Of course, if we look at his past, look at other things that Trump has spoken on, not exactly always in line with the truth. Peter Slots, he says, got money for war, but can't feed the poor. I think that's another big thing that people are looking at in that regards to the fact that this conflict is being fought, but there's still a lot of issues at home that we had not resolved. We know the airports are being delayed, TSA, DHS. Like there's still some things where we need to resolve, and it looks as though money could be the resolution. Yet we know billions have been spent on this conflict already. Michael, what are your thoughts on some of this?
Um, yeah, there has been probably more than billions spent on not just this conflict, but
For sure.
multiple. Yes, there is people here in the United States that are poor and they might go hungry.
Mhm.
But when's the last time? No, I'm not sure. It could. I mean, I'm sure it could happen, but I've never seen it. When's the last time you've seen an American citizen that looked like one of the starving people in another country where they're actually hard up, you know, like a skeleton?
Yeah, I mean, even it's safe to say being destitute in America is very different than being so in another country, right?
It's luxury. It's luxury
Very
compared to some
different for
people.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to tell people. You should be grateful for what you have. I don't care if you have a house with a hole in the roof and only
Mm,
one side of your house stays dry. You should be grateful you have that one half, you know, because some people out there don't. 'Cause the world is a very ugly place outside of the
agreed.
comfort that we have.
I definitely agree with being grateful and being content with what the Lord gives us. Absolutely. Absolutely, Michael.
Right. But,
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead. Uh, they have been preparing for this conflict for a while. And
Yeah.
inevitably, I, as a child, and I don't know why, but as a child, I always knew that this was going to happen. And coincidentally, the opening of the Operation Epic Fury actually happened on my birthday, uh,
Oh, wow.
like the same day. But um, it does not surprise me that this was going to happen. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, you talking about wars, rumors, wars, and all this stuff. You look at the Euphrates River. Isn't that drying up? I mean, isn't it?
I've heard that for a
It's-
while. Yeah.
yeah, it's consistently just still steadily drying. Uh, and we all know what's written in the Bible when that happens. But
Mm,
um, anyway, it has been a long thought out thing. And that's why I was saying that I think that they're luring us into a trap.
mm,
Uh, they're inviting us basically to you know. And when you talk about Iran and the belief system and the military, you're
hmm.
talking about a lot of points of position. It's just like all these other organizations, like let's say Hezbollah, the Houthis, whoever. You take out one of the commanders, 10 more pop up.
Facts.
So there's a lot of power players inside of there, and they're not necessarily decentralized because that power structure of another commander just being able to pop up tells you that it's not structured like a normal army would be structured.
Mhm.
And so, with that being said, in Iran itself, there could be internal struggles for who will be the new leader. I mean,
Yeah.
that could be a possibility. But also, that would mean that if you did make a deal with somebody, another group of people might not agree with that and they might attack you anyway. So it's, they opened up a can of worms.
Yeah.
It's always kind of been a can of worms. And you can tell by the way that the other countries have responded to this that they're
Mhm.
terrified. They're scared.
They
And
definitely don't want any parts of it. That's for sure.
no, and there's good reason. Iran is beyond formidable. When you read Daniel, there's a part in Daniel where Gabriel was held up for like 20 some days or something like that,
Mhm.
uh, with the Prince of Persia. Um, and so that tells you something,
Mm.
because ain't no regular person going to hold up an archangel. Um, so
It
there's
is
something
Bible.
else going on here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Persia historically has not been nothing to play with. I mean, that's just a fact.
No, no, no. And it's one of the oldest countries on the earth.
Yeah.
So to think that one of the oldest civilizations that are still around now doesn't have a grip on, like, let's say war, for instance, or anything for that matter, it's not like they're incompetent people,
Right.
you know. Um, so you're playing with something different. Plus, also there's a morale thing, in the Shiite Muslim belief, to die fighting your enemy is a good thing, you know. So they wouldn't mind just dying, and giving up everything and sending whatever they need to send. American soldiers are signing up, but I don't think that they're as willing to die.
Hmm. I mean, I agree with that for sure. I want to read this comment from Dante. Shout out to Dante Maxwell. He says they asked for 200 billion to fund the war. I do remember seeing that. Outside of the billions of dollars already spent on military services, 200 billion to fund the war, and we had a government shutdown at the end and beginning, or at the end of the year, and then another slight one at the beginning of this year because of money. But asking for 200 billion to fund this war, it wasn't voted on. There was no type of, hey, should we go and do this? It's kind of a hard pill to swallow for sure. Slither Gaming, he says, in response to you, Michael, he said Michael doesn't realize that mosques were used for both places of worship and military outposts historically and in their scriptures. State and religion are of the same in their belief system.
Yes, yes, that is accurate. But I wasn't saying that he wasn't necessarily the leader of Iran. I'm saying he's the religious leader of the entire Shiite Muslim world, which
Saying
its
it's bigger
border
than
is
Iran. Yeah, I hear
right, much bigger than it. It's like half of the Muslim world.
you. Hmm.
And as you know, in the Muslim world, it's up there. Like, it's like the second biggest religion in the world. So, that's what I was referring to. And I was referring to the fact that they have a president. So they have a president that makes political moves, but then political moves are definitely influenced by the Ayatollah. Well, they
Yeah,
were.
usually in line, right? Usually in agreement. And that could be for the reason that you stated, Ayatollah being the leader of religiously the population that is uh, they're Shiites, correct? Shiite Muslim,
Yeah, I believe so. I might be wrong. It could be Sunni, but I don't think it's Sunni. I'm pretty sure it's Shiite.
right? So it makes sense that the president of the country would want to fall in line with the religious leader as well. We've seen that multiple times. We see that in Israel, actually. Speaking on Israel, before I play this next clip, Michael, there was a very interesting clip that came out with regards to, their current president, Netanyahu, and the religious leaders there, in regards to making, or not forcing, but bringing about in a quicker fashion the coming of the Messiah. Now, I don't know if you've heard that before, but it's a really strange, to me, line of thought, because we already know in the scriptures what the scripture says about that. But to think that you could influence it and bring it about then kind of points to saying that man has some sort of control over that, in some way of knowing, that. And we already know, again, what the scripture says regarding it. But I'm interested, Michael, if you've heard that line of thinking before concerning the nation of Israel and causing wars, famines, things around the world to usher in the second coming.
Technically, to like maybe Hasidic Jews and Orthodox Jews to a degree, it would be the first coming. That's what they would
Right, for
believe.
them, yeah, right.
Right. And I'm not sure if I've heard them talk about like famines and this and that and starting wars, but I have heard them say things like Benjamin Netanyahu will be around for the coming of the Messiah, and that the Messiah is coming, and all these things, and that they want him to come faster. And to a
Right.
degree, if indeed there is to be a third temple rebuilt before the son of perdition arrives on the scene, then they would have to build it. So that would be a surefire way right there to spark, somebody coming in and saying that they're God and declaring to be worshipped as God above all gods, showing himself as God. So realistically, that's where we're heading anyway. I mean, we all know it. The mark of the beast will inevitably be a thing. It's not like prophecy's going to fail. It doesn't matter necessarily if it's in our lifetime or if it is, but it will be. So inevitably, that's where it is. That's where it goes anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to play a short clip for you, Michael, in regards to what we're talking about. Very interesting. A lot of people may or may not have heard this or seen this clip, but it's very, again, a different way of thinking than obviously me or you would be subject to. But my part in this is to say, okay, let's just extrapolate this for a moment. If the president of a country, Israel, has a belief that causing more war, famine, whatever, destruction, and things like that will bring about the coming of the Messiah, and he's got access to nuclear arsenals and high tech weapons and billions of dollars funded from the United States, that's not a good position. It's just not a good position for the rest of the world to be in, obviously. So I want to play this clip, Michael. I want to get your thoughts on it, and then we're going to come right back to the chat and another clip regarding President Trump and what's going on here about the war. Is Trump lying about the war? Is he telling the truth? Do you support his actions regardless? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the poll. Let's listen and watch closely here.
Rabbi Sneerson. And he is the leader, or he used to be, he's died, but he used to be the leader of an organization called the Shabbat Lubavitch. I'll be talking more about Shabbat Lubavitch as we go along, okay? But I introduce you to him now. This year, 1990, and he is talking to Benjamin Netanyahu, who is a young and upcoming politician in Israel, okay? And so let's look at the conversation.
Netanyahu, after
This is Netanyahu,
בזמן שישראל לאחרונה נמצא ניתצו כמה עניינים. מה שרואה עוד, וגם משהו שעדיין משאיר ליבו. אז הייתה משהו במה ידיעתו. עושים. אז כנראה שאם מספיק, שהיום כבר כמה שוד מגיעים עדיין ליבו. אבל יש עוד כמה שעות, אבל יש להשתדל גם היום.
Okay, so what's going on here? Okay, so as an up-and-coming politician, Netanyahu is going to the rabbi, and the rabbis are the most powerful people in the Jewish society. He basically says, will you give me your blessing? Will you support me in my political endeavors? And the rabbi says, yes. They also talk about how things are progressing, okay? So another way of saying this is that there's almost like a plan in motion to achieve certain religious objectives. And things are going well. But the Rabbi Schneerson says, but they're not going fast enough because we need the Messiah, the great leader of the Jewish people, to come. And we can set in motion things that will force the coming of the Messiah. So let's speed things up, Netanyahu. Okay?
Very, very strange way of thinking, in my opinion. Michael, have you seen this clip before? If not, what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure if I have, but I really couldn't see the subtitles because it was so small on my phone.
Oh,
so I'm
gotcha.
not
Okay.
so I'm not exactly sure what they were saying. I did hear the word Mashiach, which is the word Messiah.
Yeah.
So
Well, did you hear the Dr. Jiang's breakdown of the video?
yeah, I did, and I've actually watched him before, and he is anti-imperialism, anti-West, so he's more in favor of because he talked about the power structure and before they got rid of kings and this and that, and how it was better when we had kings and these types of things instead of
Fair enough.
and really I want you to do me a favor, TNT. I want you, in your off time, I want you to use your Bible thing where you can type in words or what have you, and it pulls up verses with those words in it. And I want you to type in the word Zion. And I want you to read some of the things that the Old Testament talks about Zion. And a lot of people say, oh, I hate Zionists. I don't have a problem with Jews and this and that. But I encourage everybody to read the Bible about what it says about Zion.
Sure.
And but the whole thing is that
well, I mean,
we're called. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, Michael, but I totally understand where you're coming from. I mean, I think he's a professor in Canada, so it'd be strange for him to not. I mean, the civilization that's supported his platform and his, position in life, it'd be strange for him to go against it. But hey, to each their own opinion.
It happens all the time.
Right, for sure. And I'm just saying, aside from that, just looking at this one clip where what he was saying was a young Benjamin Netanyahu before he became president, speaking to the rabbi's telling him, hey, you need to do more to usher in the coming of the Messiah, like you said. And he said, we're doing. Or basically he was saying, yeah, we're trying. And he was like, hey, it's not enough. There's still time. You need to try harder, for lack of a better word. So that, I mean, just to think of that mindset and the type of power that Netanyahu has, right? How long has he been in control or in leadership of Israel? Just off the top of your head.
He's been prime minister since probably a little bit before I was born, so probably 93, 94.
Right. So shortly after that clip, right? Because that was shot in 1990. So he was on his
Maybe it was
way.
92. I'm not sure, but he's been in there for some time, and he's actually the prime minister. I think they have a president below him.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
But I mean, it's as much as people dislike Putin and how long he's been in power, uh, there's a similarity there, right?
Well, with a lot of people, you look at Xi Jinping, you look at Putin, you look at Kim Jong Un, you look at Netanyahu, this one, that one. You look at Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. I mean, he was
For
in there
sure.
since '79.
Right.
So there's a lot of that goes on around the world. And the United States is an exception, just like the Western countries. But also, this has become a problem because whereas most leaderships don't change periodically, and the other half of the world's does, that makes negotiations and deals and etc. harder because you have a time period where there's a leader that does a certain thing, and then all of a sudden a new leader comes in and they do. Sometimes they go along with it, sometimes they do something different. So it's a
Right.
lot of. So that's been happening for some time because you see it all the time. You've seen Bush go in. You've seen a lot of things that
Like
he
an
did.
about
You've seen
face.
right, and you've seen Barack Obama and the things he did that were the exact opposite. And you can go back even further, actually. So that makes a problem for the world, and that makes it hard for things to stay peaceful to a degree. So inevitably, this was always going to happen. Even in the Bible, in Revelation, it talks about wars.
Right.
You know, so
And we know, what it says about, you know, those who call themselves Jews in the Bible. We
yeah,
won't go too far into that, but it's just, I mean, am I alone here that that's alarming, that line of thought for someone who has so much power, specifically the type of weapons and stuff that Israel has, and knowing that Netanyahu's the one making the decisions.
um, it's not alarming to me because throughout the Bible, Israel. Now you got to remember, we're the bride of Christ. Israel is never referred to as the bride of Christ.
Mm.
That's a whole different topic. Not saying that you know that
No, I
Christians
hear what you're
replace
saying, that
them,
the relationship
but
there is for
right,
sure
it's
is
it's
different.
it's different, right?
Yeah.
Because when you read Revelation, actually, there's a part where Jesus comes up and they see the holes in his hands, and they say, who did this to you? And he said, my friend's done this to me. So you see a group of people that didn't even know who Jesus Christ was, because if they did, they wouldn't have to ask him, why do you have these holes? Uh, so that's, something else. And there is a portion of Israel where it is a synagogue of Satan. And that's why in Daniel, Jerusalem is trampled underfoot for 40 and 2 months. Because when you read Lamentations and when you read, I believe it's uh, Jeremiah and all these other things, and you read the Bible
Second
and you put it
Kings.
all in context, yeah, they're all talking about similar things because none of them warnings were too much for the people at the time. I mean, they had some warnings for them, but a lot of the warnings were prophecy. And you can see why later on certain things are said in the Bible because they reflect the Old Testament. You can't throw the Old Testament out.
No,
But
no, sir.
the thing is that there is a indignation. You see, so you got a tribulation, you got the wrath of God, and you got the indignation which are all different things. And I don't want to go too much into all this, but there's a part in the Old Testament where God was saying, "Oh, I planted a vineyard and I expected basically choice grapes. And I found inside my vineyard wild grapes and all these things." And he's talking about purging his vineyard. And that is basically what happens when Jerusalem is trampled underfoot for 42 months, because that's the abomination, desolation. And Jesus has let those that are in Judea and all these places flee into the wilderness, and that's like the only time in the Bible Jesus told anybody to run from something, because there's a certain declaration that has been put on Israel. Wars and declarations are decreed to the end.
Yeah.
So,
well, time and time again, not to cut you off, Michael, but I seen that time and time again. Like I was mentioning, Second Kings, and what Manasseh did, and it's like, okay, well, you have to pay for that.
Right.
Right. So I agree. It's a different thing going on there for sure.
Right. I can't speak too much on it because I was grafted in, because in the New Testament, it says that specifically, that there's a certain number of Gentiles that are to be saved. And then, once that's it, that's it. People would read the Bible, they would know these things. But unfortunately, living in the Western world, the only thing that we can indulge ourselves with, for the most part, is entertainment.
Cell phones, yeah.
Right. Not even, cell phones or anything. Even if you didn't have a cell phone and you were really bored, you'd go outside and play with the ball or something. But you would be hard pressed to sit down and pick up a Bible and read one whole book without stopping.
Yeah, no, agreed. Definitely something I can do better at. Indeed, we all can, sticking and staying in the scriptures. So,
Yeah, myself included.
Amen. Interesting take from Michael. I mean, I guess alarmed maybe isn't the right word, but just surprised. I hadn't heard that line of thinking before, saying, hey, we can do more to usher in the coming of the Messiah. It's just really strange. And of course, not strange, it's just new, I guess, to me. In the regards of what we see happening today, what we saw happening with the conflict in the Middle East. So, that being said, I have another clip. This one is in response to President Trump going back and forth. Is the Democratic senator, and he's kind of outlining and laying out the fact that it's kind of hard for us to understand what's really going on with this war. And again, it begs the question that we have in the chat. I appreciate everyone that voted. Looking at the poll, 63% said yes, Trump lies all the time. Close to 200 votes now. But you have to ask the question, is President Trump lying about the war? Especially given what we've seen already, what we've heard from both sides, including the president and from the leadership of Iran. But let's listen here to the Democratic senator in regards to his opinion, his take on the developments here at the U.S.-Iran war. Let's listen closely.
On Iran. Donald Trump's war with Iran now enters its fourth week. There's no end in sight. Instead of giving the American people a clear plan for how to move forward, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, continues, unfortunately, to flail. Over the weekend, Trump threatened to destroy Iran's major power infrastructure if Iran did not come to the table. Then this morning, after all the bluster and all the threats, Trump appeared to retreat, suddenly claiming there are major points of agreement with the regime, even as Iran flatly denies it, and there are no diplomatic talks. What is going on here? This is not leadership from the commander-in-chief. He's either confused, lying, or both, and that's what always happens. Whatever pops into his head at the moment, he speaks. And 2 hours or 2 days later, if he has a totally contradictory thought, he says that one. That's not the way to solve our problems. That's not the way to get Iran to do what we want them to do. He must look like a flailing fool.
So some pretty tough words here from the Democratic senator. Some may agree, some may disagree. I mean, that's his take on it. He did mention getting Iran to do what we want them to do. So, kind of interesting wording there. Um, Someone had asked a good question in the chat, and then I'll get Michael's thoughts. Susu, shout out to you, said, "What is the three conditions?" Iran had three conditions to end the war, and it's a great question. And we'll answer that now. So, first, they want recognition of their legitimate rights in the region. They want reparations, compensation for the damage um, that have taken place from the military strikes. And lastly, they want assurances, guarantees that future war or any aggression towards them will not recur or reoccur. And so those are the three conditions that were outlined by Iran earlier in March. And they pretty much stuck to them. You know, they're asking for the U.S. to withdraw from the region and things of that nature. But those are their conditions there.
They're
In
not really
regards,
asking; they're
well,
demanding.
yeah, those are the demands for sure. And I mean, when you look at what happened, again, there was negotiations, right, Michael? There were talks of some kind of nuclear deal coming to pass, and then the U.S. struck them and took out their leader. So they didn't really ask; they just took him out. So I understand them demanding now and saying, "Hey, look, we're not trying to really play." Um, we're not playing nicely anymore because you guys already started shooting first. If you start
There's
shooting first, how are we going to ask? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Michael.
there's one thing. As that one brother was mentioning in the chat, that
Hmm.
they have used mosques as both worship and military command centers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in their belief, basically, Israel and you know, basically United States are devils. They said it themselves. They call us devils. Um, Now, with that being said, in their belief, it's perfectly fair, legitimate, and encouraged to lie to your enemy. So you can't rule that out the table because Iran not only having shocking statements and developments like I said, technological when they was talking about tractor beam weapons and all these things, they've also had a lot of contradictory statements themselves. And they
Mm.
also fund a vast network of rebel groups that cause all kinds of mayhem in all kinds of regions. Because, like I said, that's half of the Muslim world is Sunni, and the other half is Shiite. Uh, so it is possible that they were having these talks and agreements, and they could have gotten intel from, let's say, Mossad or whoever, that them agreements might not ever work or whatever, or it could have been bad intel and led them this way.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of things that we don't know, so we don't necessarily know 100% why it happened during a negotiation. We just know that it did. I'm sure that eventually the truth will inevitably come out, whether it's like 100 years from now or whatever. Um, but as for right now, it's hard telling the exact reason why it happened the way it did and when it happened.
Fair enough.
But when you read the Bible and it says wars and declarations and all these stuffs are decreed until the end,
Mhm.
that means that there is not a war that wasn't already part of what God was going to do. Because it's not like we have full control to do whatever we want. Even the devil and Satan and all that, he can only do what God gives him the power or allows him to do. So none of this is by happenstance, because God don't do anything for Nothing. And a lot of people might say, well, God's not doing this or that. He might not be directly doing it, but he's allowing it to happen. He's not putting a stop to it. So, you know, really what we need is prayers. We need prayers
Okay.
for the leaders. We need prayers for all the people involved. Really, we need to pray that God's will is going to be done. Because at the end of the day, in the Bible, when it says that God knows what you are in need of before you are able to ask or think, that means that God knows more than us. And so if we have a specific prayer sometimes and we think that it's God's will, it might not actually be God's will. That's why the Bible says that if you pray and you don't receive, count it as a mist that you consumed it upon your own lust. So you got to keep that in mind too, because we're just lowly people. I can sit here and I can talk to you all well and articulate and all these things and all this stuff, but I don't definitively know anything except for Jesus Christ and Him crucified.
Amen. And I mean, fair enough. It is speculation. I do think that people have a right to know what's going on just in regards to how it affects them, right? Economically, this war was started and it's impacted a lot of people, a lot of countries, of course, for sure. And so I think when that happens, when you're making moves that affect a lot of different populations, people, demographics, excuse me, then they have the right to some type of transparency instead of this back and forth, like, hey, we're winning, the war is over, uh, but, I'm sending in some more troops and things of that nature. So it's really tough to say. I want to read Slither's his comment back to you, his response. He said, actually, Sunni and Shia both use mosques for the same purposes. Similar to what you were saying, Michael, it's in the Quran. You were saying it's in their faith. So both can apply this protocol respectively, regardless of their school of thought. Fair enough. One drummer
Also,
said, I'm sorry, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Uh, Also, in the Muslim world,
Hmm.
if Sunni and Shiite Muslims are having an issue
Hmm.
in the Muslim world, if anybody were to try to, help or whatever, this or that, they're likely to get pushed out by both sides because when those factions of Muslims have issues, they consider that a brotherly squabble, and it should be resolved between brothers. So there's a lot of complexities when you're
For
talking
sure.
about not just the Christianity or whatever, but all religions.
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, it is a complex thing, especially that it's a different belief structure than ours. So that adds ambiguity to it as well. So one drummer says Trump is always lying. And the poll reflects that that's the most common thought. Shout out to Sister Roseanne. We appreciate you for sure coming through. I want to take this comment here and get your thoughts. Michael, let me see here. LBC Crusade, shout out to you and welcome to the After Hours. He said Iran in the 1930s and America is in 2050. We are good. Michael, you had mentioned a lot of different advancements that Iran had made. And so I understand. I mean, from my perspective, I don't know a lot about what goes on over there. From what I see, is Iran's technology reflective of 1930s in America in the 2050s? Obviously, he's making a joke, but is it similar to what he's saying, or is it a little bit closer together?
Uh, Nowhere near. Um, if you were to, if you were to put the United States 1941 up against the United States 1991, okay, who do you think's going to win that?
I'm sorry. Say again.
If you were to pit the United States against itself in two different time frames,
Hmm.
so if you were to put the United States at 1941 and you put it up against the United States 1991, who would win that conflict?
I somewhat argue in the 90s they had more advanced weaponry.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes the whole thing, because you're talking about people that would be flying more basic propeller airplanes, not even fighter jets. A fighter jet goes faster than the speed of sound. Those planes only went, a couple hundred miles an hour at most. I don't even think that fast. You're talking GPS guided missiles and artillery. Back then, you're talking about mortars and, ground defenses that were basically cannons. So obviously, if you were to put the best military up against the United States in 1991, let alone 2026, if you would put them up against the United States military in 1991, they would lose hand down severely with heavy casualties very quickly. Now, what you see with Iran is just you see them still launching significant strikes. Even actually amping up, supposedly, if it's true that they launched that missile toward Diego Garcia, that would further escalate their strikes, because now they're showing off missiles that have been rumored that they've had that, nobody really knew, and they claimed that they couldn't. So propaganda is a big deal. Like I said, all countries have it. And obviously, Iran is very advanced and very good at espionage and all of these things, because Iran is very good at, as much as Israel wouldn't admit it, they're very good at finding Mossad agents. And they find Mossad agents fairly effectively, obviously not all the time. But so, and they've got pacts and treaties with some of the biggest superpowers on the planet. China alone is like the next economic power hub of the whole world. Pretty much any product.
Yeah.
Yes. Every product is pretty much produced in China. It doesn't matter what it is. Right. So you're talking about stuff that is said publicly, but nobody ever puts the dots together. You think about this. The United States, they say, is the richest, most powerful nation on the planet, right? Well, is that true? Because if that's true, how come the richest, most powerful planet on a nation is trillions of dollars in debt? And what does that say about the rest of the nations, if that is the case?
Well, I think it might be saying, not to cut you off, Michael, but like U.S. is obviously the biggest consumer, right? So there's multiple ways, I guess, to look at, who's the richest. If you're buying the most, then someone will argue, okay, you've got the most money because you're purchasing the most out of everyone else, in the world. But then another way to look at it is the production aspect. And you're absolutely right. China produces the most in the world for sure, by far. So others would say, okay, well, if you're producing the most, then you obviously have the highest amount of product and you stand to gain the most from that production. And so that's where I think there's different ways of looking at, I guess, who's the richest country. It just depends on obviously.
Way. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, you're right in the regard that it's contested, but there's just multiple ways to look at it for sure.
Yeah, because one of the ways that you could look at it, and you got to think with governments, there's always a manipulation of numbers. Whoever the government is who's controlling the numbers for everything to a degree that place sees and hears or whatever. So, you're looking at power structures and kingdoms. But the thing is that sometimes when people say the richest, they also might mean the quality of life. Like here in America, like we saying, even poor people have a relatively, like, it's luxury compared to a poor person, let's say in Russia,
Uh-huh.
or Mexico or wherever, Jamaica, Haiti, you can go on and on and on. South Sudan, Nigeria, Somalia, there's a lot of people that's hard up, and I think we've lost track of that to a degree.
Kind
There's
of
no
shielded.
reason. Yeah, no, absolutely. We're shielded from it behind privilege that we didn't earn, privilege that we got because other people shed their blood so that way we would have this privilege. But
Mhm.
somehow we've lost sight of that. And it's kind of like Jesus' sacrifice. And that's why a lot of people, I guess, get all holy and all this stuff because they forget that what was given to them and the rights they have as a child of God and everything is given to them because of the shedding of blood of Jesus Christ and nothing else. Because you can't really appreciate something if you don't know what was sacrificed for you to have it. You know.
Fair enough. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, there's a relationship between the countries that holds them all up, right? Um, they're reliant on one another to a certain extent. And I know we've heard President Trump said, we don't need the Strait of Hormuz, we don't need that oil and things of that nature. Um, but for the sake of production and being the largest consumer in the world, there are things that you need to continue the status quo, if you will. So, yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that will continue to evolve, as things go on. The video that's playing now, it's showing how, despite the things we've heard, there's still strikes going on. There's still missiles being fired. There is no ceasefire. There's no halt in the strikes in regards. Iran has pledged that the conflict will not end until those demands are met. And of course, I have to use the analogy: if you walk up to someone, Michael, and punch them in the face, and they retaliate, you don't get to tell them when the fight is over. And so,
Well,
unfortunately,
you should expect the retaliation first off, which to a degree I would say that they did. Uh, I'm sure that there are bigger things behind the scenes going on that's
mhm,
bigger than any one country or any one country's doing. Like a global, type of, while all this is happening, they at the economic I don't know if it's the World Economic Firm or if it's BlackRock. I can't remember. It's a huge asset manager. Maybe you'll look into it. You'll find it. I can't remember off the top of my head.
oh,
But
trying to think of the name. I'm sorry. Keep going though.
they're talking about tokenizing the whole world, like all the currency and everything. Talking about making it tokenized or basically digital, I guess.
Yeah, digital
And
currency.
another thing people aren't talking about is space phenomena. Whether it be the sun or random meteors that are exploding over various parts of the United States or whatever. Nobody's talking about those things. And when you read in Isaiah, and it says that the heavens are going to be departed as a scroll, I often wonder what that would look like. And I know that things in space would have to happen for that. Uh, and there's a lot of things that actually are happening that a lot of people don't really, and there's a lot of mechanics that people don't understand either. Like, for instance, in space, viruses are 600 times more potent than what they are on the surface of the planet.
Yikes.
So if you had the common cold in space, it's 600 times more potent than what it would be here on the ground.
Yeah.
So it's a breeding ground for viruses and various other things. And um,
Well, talking about, things that are going on in the heavens and in the skies, um, just today, because depending if you're on the East Coast, it's the 25th. Over here, it's still the 24th. But over the skies of, Seattle, Washington, they saw a bright streaking object, and they're saying it's debris from a rocket from SpaceX or something of that nature. But of course, we're down here on Earth, so we don't really we don't really know what it was. Um, and we have to kind of take their word for it, right? But just kind of pointing out to what you were saying, Michael, things that are happening in the skies for sure, all the time and
Well,
all over the place.
under the water as well. I don't
Mhm.
know if anybody's ever actually listened to all of the commentary and all this stuff on these alien disclosure meetings that they had in front of Congress and stuff.
They had a lot of
But
them.
yeah, they did. And they said a lot of things, and they admitted a lot of things, like that there's biological specimens and craft and of all these various things. And you call me crazy, you call me whatever. But one day, people will see worms, big worms in the sky. And I know that sounds crazy. I know it sounds outlandish.
Wait a minute. Wait.
I know it sounds outlandish. I know.
What do you mean exactly, though? I'm not ruling anything out. I mean, it's
Well,
2026. But what
well,
do you mean?
the way I see it, and you know how I read the Book of Enoch. Uh, the way I see it is that we have a really big deal on saying is what's not what don't exist or what's not possible. So a lot of Christians will say Thor and Loki and this and that and this and that, what's his name, Pazuzu, whatever, all these different entities, whether it be Sumerian or whatever, they say all they're imaginary fake gods, right? They say that they're not real, this and that. I'm not one to discredit people. And when I read the book of Enoch, and I absolutely think it should be part of scripture. If you haven't read it, you should really read it and keep Jesus in mind. I mean, if you don't want to, that's fine. If the Lord didn't call you into that, by no means don't do anything the Lord didn't call you to do. Just make sure that, you're not the one stopping yourself from doing it. But anyway, okay.
Well, I
So,
just want you to explain because the people are asking what does Michael mean exactly by worms?
right, I mean worms, because when you look at the flood, and God destroyed all the flesh that was on the planet, all the animals and everything, except for two of every kind, all the trees and everything. And the book of Enoch, it talks about how, for a lack of better terms, fallen angels had basically bred themselves with men, with animals, with plants, with, X, Y, and Z. So, like the werewolf, giants, let's say, hellhounds or chupacabra or whatever, goblins, ghouls, whatever people have been saying for years,
Hmm.
mysterious creatures.
Well,
I'm not
up here we
discounting,
got Bigfoot up here.
well, I'm not discounting that any of those things exist because I don't know. But what I do know is that if they did exist, their nature is misunderstood. They're not necessarily what people think they are or what they've been told that they are. Uh, because you got to think, in the Bible, it says that men's hearts are going to fail them for fear, for looking after those things that are coming upon the earth. And there's other parts where there are these weird locusts that are released that have, hair like a woman and
Yikes.
teeth like a lion and all these various things. But anyway, In the Christian community, people don't believe in aliens, or they say that the whole alien thing, they're going to use Project Bluebeam to fake the rapture or something like that. So there's no balance. But me personally, I believe that the children of the fallen angels became what people call evil spirits, and they never left. And that they've had physical forms, for lack of better terms, many different ways and all these things. But anyway, they're talking a lot about alien disclosure. Alien disclosure, right.
So
They're not.
let me
Sorry, go ahead.
let me ask this real quick, Michael. And I don't want to cut you off, but do you believe extraterrestrials and things like that to be more of a like spiritual demonic force?
Manifestation, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A manifestation would be you know, they have to a degree. They just have to, because you read all this stuff about things stinging people and things, you know, killing people with the smoke and fire out of their mouth, and all these for lack of better terms, again, entities. Sorry. Anyway, so they have to disclose things because things are going to be visible, because the more attention that people have for something, that's how we have dominion. That's what we get. You know, the more people that have an appetite for iniquity, the more iniquity grows. The more people that have an appetite for spiritual things or extraterrestrials or what have you, the more it steps into our existence, because that's what we're asking for. Um,
Hmm.
so they're not going to have all this alien talk and disclosure and stuff without there being some kind of demonstration or display. And I know it sounds crazy now, but imagine, if you would, a 6-7 foot tall praying mantis that was intelligent and could speak. That's like stuff of nightmares. But we don't necessarily know what exists out here. And I just know the feeling. I just know the feeling I have spiritually, like dark, heavy spirits. I can feel it's like they're coming, and they're on the edge of manifestation. The more satanic people become, I mean, because that's a big thing too. Satanism, it's on the rise. Witchcraft, Ouija boards, seances, you name it, conjurings. A lot of people are doing a lot of stuff, and there's a big falling away right now in the church. A lot of people that have been pastors for 20, 30 years are now coming out and saying, oh, I was a pastor for 20, 30 years. And then one day I told my congregation, I don't believe this stuff. And now they're an atheist or whatever. And it's happening in big numbers. There's a lot of people falling off. And I don't know. But you don't have to take my word for it, because I am just a man. But if you ever do see worms in the sky, sorry.
I'm definitely gonna say Michael told. I'm definitely gonna say Michael told me this would happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll talk more about that then, if that's the case, God willing.
Oh man. No, I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, Michael. I don't know what I don't know. I'm a babe in the
Right.
faith. I have much to learn. As you know, I am not no type of preacher or anything, hold no position in the church other than a brother of low degree. So I certainly can say there's many things touching the spiritual world that I just don't know about. And I think it's a very interesting topic. Fallen angels in general, I think, right? Is kind of what you're is what you were pointing to, or am I off?
Well, it wouldn't necessarily be fallen angels, but it would be their offspring. Yes, their children.
Right. But I guess
Right.
they hold origin to what you're pointing to, in a sense,
Yeah.
right? Because if there's
Yeah.
no
Because
fallen angels, then no offspring.
a lot of people, the biggest thing they have with the Book of Enoch is that they say that it contradicts or it has a separate account of the fall or whatever. But when you actually read the Book of Enoch, you realize that the first 200 fallen angels that fell on Mount Hermon were the captains of tens and twenties and chiefs of, this number and that number. So those were more like the generals or, the commanders. And then eventually Lucifer is cast out as well. Because when you have a war, you know, you don't always just cast out the head guy right off the jump. And to say that Donald Trump really killed the Ayatollah and it was what it appeared to be them just killing a man at home, I don't know necessarily, because before that, there's a lot of talk of him being ill because the man was born in the 30s. So, he's already elderly and there was already kind of speculation of talk of him having cancer or him being ill. I don't know how true that is, but for him to be sitting at home like a sitting duck, you know, just stranger than what it appears to be, because it's not like he wouldn't know the effect of him being killed by an adversary versus him dying of cancer.
Well, I mean, so you're saying that it might be like a false
I'm saying
report that he was,
Iran is more deceptive than what you would think.
but the report came from the U.S.
What?
that of Ayatollah being taken out, right? Like they
Yeah.
confirmed it.
No, sure. Yeah, I'm saying that's true. They did kill him with the bomb, but it's not like that act of what he would call martyrdom wasn't planned. Because
Well, I mean,
like I said, sorry.
yeah, no. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think it was in the. I hate to say in the cards, but it was in his mind that for several years, right? Like, oh, because like you said, they've been preparing for the United States to strike, right, for decades. So if you're preparing for a strike, then you're saying to yourself, and you're watching how they strike other neighboring countries in the area, and you're saying, okay, well, if they can do that to them, then they can certainly do that to me, and it's only a matter of time. So I guess what I'm saying is the thought or the mindset or the preparations to be a martyr, definitely I would say it makes sense to have been already in the thought pattern, if you will, just watching how things unfolded in the region and knowing what they were preparing for. You could say that they were preparing at some point there would be martyrs when the US attacked, which is what they were preparing for, right?
Yeah.
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 So I'm not saying that at the end of the day I don't know, but I guess what all I'm saying is that he probably knew at some point if he lived long enough to see a US attack that he would be, you know, martyred.
Yeah. Yeah. I was, like I said, I don't know how true it was. But like I said, the man was 80 something, if not almost pushing 90. And like I said, there was a lot of speculation about him being sick, or having troubles and this and that. And so, in the grand scheme of things, for him to die at the hand of his enemy versus him dying of natural causes, old age, and illness,
Yeah,
whatever.
for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I really feel like the whole thing is, like you said, a bait and switch, because they've known and they've been preparing for a long time, not just for the United States, but for Israel as well. And they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. Whether you agree or disagree with that or whatever, whether you think it's right, that's what they want, because Israel is a threat because like the brother was saying, the politics and the religion are hand in hand. So you're talking about a belief system. So
Mhm.
you're talking about other countries coming in and trying to either change a belief system or get it to adapt to the rest of the world and this and that. And that's not necessarily easily done. But I'm saying that, yes, they are very cunning, very cunning. There are certain special, I guess you could call them operations or special forces in Iran that nobody wants a part of. Very elite, um, top, top of the mill, almost superhuman, I guess you could say in some ways. Uh, the whole
Wow.
area, really. There was actually, and I know this might sound strange, but there was actually observations, I believe, in the Gulf War. Possibly it was the Gulf War. I can't remember. It might have been Desert Storm. I don't know. But one of the leaders over there, he was actually observed by certain people in the U.S. military to frequent a well in the middle of the desert. It was a well, and he would go there, and it had green smoke coming out of it. And all the people that would be with him couldn't go near the well. And I know it sounds fairy tale-ish, and I know it does, but if you dig hard enough and deep enough, you can find these things. It's all public knowledge, but you have to really dig deep. But he would go to this well, and he would be fine. Nobody else could be near it, but he would be perfectly fine, and he would get
So,
insight from this well.
okay. So, and who is this that you're saying?
It was one of the Persian leaders, I believe, in the it was either Desert Storm or the Gulf War, uh, somewhere in that time frame. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was like
Wow.
the leader, at the time. Not necessarily supreme leader, but he was like a top like official in the military, or maybe like the president. Um, but U.S. forces observed that. I know it sounds crazy, and I don't necessarily care if you believe me, because if I didn't know, then I wouldn't believe it myself. Because it sounds outlandish. Um, and the last thing I want to do, is lie. But like I said, you take
Well, I mean,
everything with a grain of
it's not
salt.
that I don't believe you. It's anything can be. Yeah, no, I mean, anything could happen. I'm gonna be honest. In those type of situations, so I
Did you
wouldn't
know?
discredit you by saying, "Oh, Michael's lying," because I don't know.
No, no, I don't care if you would say I was lying, because at the end of the day, I don't need to defend myself or anything like that, because, only somebody that thinks they're right about everything would defend himself. And I could very well be wrong on a lot of things. But one thing is that, did you know that majority of people that say they've stepped foot in Iran, majority of people say that when they get to Iran and they step foot in the country, they get this severe type anxiety, or type of, you know, not necessarily fear, but just some type of off feeling. Uh, and to a degree, that could be said about the United States. If you were to go state to state in the United States, it's almost like different places have a different, feeling to them, a different appeal or whatever. And I know a lot of people might say that's physical or whatever, because you're at a place and it looks pretty and it puts you at ease or whatever, this or that. But
Mhm.
I feel like there's a lot of spiritual things that happen behind the scenes that we'd never
Oh,
pay
for sure,
attention to.
for
Yeah.
sure.
As a matter of fact, the church in the modern age has become severely anti-spiritual, and a lot of people nowadays have trouble believing that angels and demons exist, and that they, are around you all the time and stuff. Everything spiritual to modern believers is like kind of whimsical, fairy tale-ish, and it's just unfortunate.
I mean, we know the scriptures speak a lot about the spiritual world, for a fact, right? In the Old Testament, certainly in the New, in different ways. So, for one, not to believe that there's things going on in the unseen, it would they would be hard pressed to say they believe the scriptures. But um, that's why I said, I very well, all these things happening when you're in the midst of war and um, the loss of life and everything that comes with that. There's just no telling what those people saw and what they experienced on a spiritual level, for sure. And that's why I would say, I'll never just go in and say that I know something I don't know, or that I don't know something I don't know. Um, and we've been rolling kind of some background clips here, B roll of the Iranian strikes on Tel Aviv. This just happened today. It was kind of a missile blitz, shocked Israel. Um, and so in regards to that, you can see Benjamin Netanyahu. He's just speaking now. Um, it's saying that Iran deployed advanced multi-warhead missiles to target Israeli cities. Kind of what you were saying before, Michael, where it's them going to continuously escalate or roll out more and more advanced weaponry. I think that is in line with what we're seeing, certainly with what we've heard from Iran when they said, hey, this is going to escalate. We have more things to use. They said that a while back, about a week or so ago. Um, what would be some of your final thoughts, Michael, as we get ready to wrap this thing up? Touching on, I mean, this war, it, hard to say that there's an end in sight, right? Because you're hearing that it's almost over. You're hearing that it's already over. You're hearing that there's talks. You're hearing that there's no talks. You're hearing there's a ceasefire. We're seeing there's not a ceasefire. What are your thoughts on this? Is this really rolling out to be a war of attrition, or is this just a big, batch of confusion, and we're just left trying to sort out the facts from what we have?
Um, I know, like I was saying last time we talked a little on this, I know that a lot of people might not agree with me and that it might not be popular, but I believe that what we're seeing is a multifaceted war, for one, but also a long durational war for, you know, minimum 5-10 years, uh, minimum. And that's what I believe is happening. And uh, if you haven't had a chance to really watch a lot of the strike footage and this and that, you should watch some of it, because sometimes, like with that fighter jet, strange things happen. Like sometimes they have missiles that are going one way and then all of a sudden just abruptly turn and nosedive into the ground somewhere or whatever.
Mhm.
So that tells you some kind of advanced missile system they have. Also, they have hypersonic missiles. And you're not going to tell me that a country that has hypersonic missiles is not
Mhm.
formidable.
Yeah, so hypersonic meaning faster than the speed of sound.
You haven't heard about them having hypersonic missiles? They've talked
No, I've
about it.
I've heard I've heard
But
about it. I mean, if you could explain a little bit, like on that technology scale.
hypersonic missile is a missile that enters Earth's atmosphere,
Wow.
and it goes where it's going to go, and it descends. It comes back into Earth's atmosphere, and it's going like Mach 17, which is severely fast considering that fighter jets, go about, I don't know. I don't know the exact number. Let's say Mach 7 Mach 5 maybe. So that tells you, a missile going at Mach 17 is severely fast. And it's called hypersonic because, yes, it is faster than the speed of sound. And Russia actually has one called the Satan II. And yeah, but they have hypersonic missiles, and they claim that hypersonic missiles are not interceptable by conventional means anyway. And like I said, you think about the 1990s, and you think about, you know, how far we came since the 1990s. Nobody's really using Scud missiles anymore. Scud missiles are something that's, kind of outdated. But even the conventional things that everybody is using is outdated because everybody in the world has, let's say, secret biolabs, secret, secret, let's say, laser production facilities, secret defense grids. There's a lot of things that people have been working on for a long time in the shadows, and they can't really deploy those things until they use up the old stock first. And with the whole gas thing, as soon as somebody comes up with a better solution for energy, gas will be obsolete to a degree at that point. I know a lot of people might think that's crazy or whatever, but with the advancement of AI and the way that we're advancing and the way that things are happening, they're not going to be able to hide a lot of the breakthroughs because realistically, the U.S. government has had, let's say, spy drones the size of a fly since like the 1930s. I know that sounds crazy as well, but um, yeah, very advanced. All the countries are very advanced, and you got to think Pakistan is a nuclear powered nation. So there's a lot of nuclear powered places involved, and everybody talks about nukes, but there are worse weapons than nuclear weapons. I would even say secret weapons is, I guess, what you can call them, doomsday devices. Uh, various space-based weapons. We have a space force. Nobody ever talks about the space force and what the space force is doing.
Yeah, they kind of went silent. I mean, they're obviously still there, but not in the headlines, obviously.
Yeah. Iran has a lot of things. They've actually taken control of ships remotely before, just
Mm.
long enough for people on board to notice that the vessel had been taken control of, and then they let it loose to just kind of show them, hey, Uh, so there's something else going on here, because, like I said, China being the biggest production in the globe, economic hub, sort of, I guess. They have access to any part or any component imaginable for anything, and they also have at points in time taken our intellectual property and they've reversed engineered it and done things with it. They've gotten a hold of fighter jet plans and this and that the United
Right.
States has had, and they would reverse engineer it and then they would upgrade it. So they would take a fighter jet, reverse engineer it, and then they would put a microwave shield on it. And a microwave shield is very advanced, because it can do a lot of things.
Well, certainly when researching like Mach speeds, sonic booms, that type of thing, it's very interesting for sure. And when you're talking about missiles that can hit you before you hear them coming, that's a whole nother level for sure.
Absolutely.
You know, Michael, when you hear the phrase hope for the best, prepare for the worst, with the U.S. being in this conflict, do you have any advice for folks who are wondering should they prepare or be prepared for an emergency survival situation?
Even, even set aside, set aside the war just for a second. There's going to be geological problems, in my opinion, severe geological opinions, or just severe geological disturbances. There's going to be a lot of rain and a lot of crazy temperatures come to the country. And at some point, you're going to start seeing sinkholes open up that's going to swallow cities for, pretty much. You're going to see volcanic eruptions, and they're ticking up now, actually. So there's a lot of things. I wouldn't necessarily trying to worry about preparing for survival. I know that it's a good thing to be prepared, yes, but I would be more worried about having a relationship with Jesus Christ,
For sure.
because he's going to be the one that is going to sustain you in a time of need. You can have all the plans and survival and gear and this and that, and not have a relationship with him, and it's going to fail you every time. So don't be worried about your own survival, because the Bible even says that those that seek to gain their life will surely lose it, and those that lose their life for my sake will surely gain it. So, there is no safe place. You're talking about prophecy, you're talking about war, you want to talk about space events, you want to talk about geological events, you want to talk about, like, let's say, solar radiation. There is no safe place on the planet that you can go. And your safe place should be Jesus Christ. You think about this. Every single person on the planet has a cancer cell inside their body. But for whatever reason, not every cancer cell activates. Only certain people have cancer cells that activate, when realistically
Like the
we could all
oxidation.
have them. Right. And it's just like when they say it's a 1 in a million chance that asteroids hit the planet or something. But realistically, it's the opposite way around. It's a 1 in a million chance that we haven't been hit already. So there's a perception of increased risk or danger. But really, there is no increase to risk or danger. But that doesn't mean be ignorant and to tempt God and to do something that but just pray to the Lord, talk to the Lord like you would talk to your dad on earth, even deeper, actually, because you don't want to have a better connection with your dad on the earth versus your father in heaven. So I implore you to go with him. If you're struggling with something and you're weak in a certain area, or you have a certain thing that you don't like and it keeps happening or whatever, go to your father truthfully about it, because it's not like he don't see it anyway, and say, hey, I have a trouble drinking. I have a trouble, doing this or that. I have a trouble judging people, whatever it may be. Pray for his guidance with it. Believe that it will happen, and don't try and do it for a selfish reason, because really you want to do it so that way people around you come to Christ. And that's one of the reasons that I never went to be a preacher or to be this or that, because I don't want to go out and actually preach the gospel or anything and be a hypocrite. So you want people to come to Christ. You don't want them to see you as an example and make them shy away from Christ. That's the exact opposite, because we're ambassadors of Christ. So just try to get a better relationship with the Lord. No matter how good you think your relationship is, it can always be better. And be grateful for what you have. And instead of worrying about the troubles and the trials that's coming, take this time in this moments of peace. Get right with God and enjoy your family.
Amen. Amen, brother. I'm right there with you. No lies detected there, and all I can say is amen. Definitely our main focus should be most definitely staying on the Lord's side, staying within his will, and asking that his will be done within our lives for sure. Michael, it's been a pleasure, sir, as always. I can't say thank you enough for the time you spent. I know you a busy man, a family man. We'll definitely do a topic on fallen angels. I think it'd just be interesting to speak about, to see what the scripture says, and of course to hear some good preaching about that as well. Michael, any final words for the people?
Yeah. Try not to laugh at people in their calamity. Understand that you have it bad here in the West. I'm sure you have things that are wrong, but it can always be much worse.
For sure.
The rest of the world is being persecuted and in agony and suffering. Children are starving to death. So, aside from all the children that are being molested and all this stuff too, that's a real problem as well. But anybody, stand up, pray for the leaders, pray for not just this nation, but all the nations, and pray that God's will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And it will be.
Amen, brother. Amen. Michael, I certainly pray that the Lord continue to bless you and your family, allowing you to prosper spiritually and physically. And certainly, if it be the Lord's will, I look forward to speaking to you again, my friend.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure. And don't give me any glory at all, because I can't, I really don't like it. Because, if it were just me and I were on my own, I would lie to you every time. And if it wasn't for the blood of Christ, you'd be better off running away from me. So really, all the glory goes to God. Even the fact that I'm standing here and, spending time and everything, that's all glory to God, because,
Amen.
there's a lot of other things that my flesh would want to do.
Amen, Michael. I agree. And I can't say thank you enough, sir.
Thank you, brother. You have a good one.
You too. Take care and God bless.
God bless you, brother.
All right. So we heard a lot of wonderful things, a lot of wonderful comments for sure in the chat. I want to give a couple of shout outs to each and every one of you, all y'all in the chat, everyone that voted in the poll. Certainly we appreciate you for sure. Deliverance Hope, we appreciate you. Wonderful, encouraging comments. Shout out to Mother Carr, Sister Bless, our channel moderators for holding it down in the chat. Shout out to 633 Matt. He's a very humble brother saying, look, I don't know it all. I'm trying to learn more about holiness. Absolutely. You're in the right place. Holiness After Hours, where we keep our mind stayed on holiness, but we also do touch on some of the current news and different things that are happening. We thank the Lord for each and every one of you that have joined us this evening, this morning, this night, whichever it may be, depending on where you're situated. But let it be known that most definitely we thank the Lord for each and every one of you. And we pray that the Lord continue to bless each and every one of you. This is TNT News. The only thing I can say are in the hands of the Lord. And so best to align ourselves with his will, to stay within his will, continue to ask for his help, his guidance, and his mercy. And so with that, I pray for each and every one of you to receive it in the name of the Lord Jesus. Until next time, brothers and sisters, friends and foes, lovers and haters, peace be and God bless.